Caleb, the next time you see a view like that, it's going to be in beautiful Las Vegas.
Oh, I can't wait.
The bright lights await you, my friend.
Yeah, and you know, it's actually supposed to be kind of chilly.
Is it?
There. Yeah.
Well, last year it flooded, so I mean, I figure it's going to be all right.
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of rain, hopefully less flooding, a little bit chilly at night. You know, it's not going to be, you know, the desert nirvana that it has been in the past.
There's Caleb's weather update for you right there. Hello, everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, this is our daily show, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you the latest in tech. And today is a very special episode because we're going to be talking about the Consumer Electronics Show. It is upon us. The next time you see this broadcast, we're going to be live in Las Vegas, broadcasting from there, from our Digital Trends booth. And for this show, what we want to do is kind of give you a rundown, just a little brief overview of the madness that is CES and let you know a little bit about maybe what to expect, what we expect. You never know exactly what's going to happen until you get down there, but we will talk about all of that today as we go through the show. What's on the docket is this. In just a few moments, we're going to be joined by Jeremy Kaplan, our editor-in-chief from New York, to get his thoughts. He wrote a great article at Digital Trends kind of going over some things. We'll hit all of those points. And then also later on the show, very special moment, we're going to be joined by Gary Shapiro, the president and CTO of the CTA. Sorry, it's a mouthful. I want to make sure there's a lot of C's involved in there, but that's because he's a big deal. So Gary Shapiro, the CTO of the CTA, is going to be joining us, and they are the people that put on the Consumer Electronics Show. What's involved with that? There is so much, and so I'm really excited to talk to him, but I'm Greg Nibbler here in studio right now with another C-Man. It's Caleb. Hello, Caleb.
Hi. How's it going?
Doing well. I feel like just with CES, if you don't know about this, and maybe just to give everybody just a little bit of a backdrop on how big of a show this is, in case you don't know. So CES, it takes place in Las Vegas every year. It's coming up right now. 4,400 exhibiting companies, 2.7 million square feet of exhibition hall, and 182,000 attendees, probably more, will be down there all at this one event.
It's more every year, and you feel every single square inch of that 44, you know, however many miles that is there. I mean, you're pounding the pavement literally, you know, constantly.
Yeah.
It's a madhouse. You have to fight to get anywhere you want to. People are like road cones, and you have to, you know, bob and weave to get through them. It's exhilarating and also just absolutely nuts at the same time.
It's insane, and I'll tell you this, like you start to go a little bit crazy, and since we are live, I just want to say this. I said CTO, I meant CEO of the CTA. So there you go. That's what happens when you're broadcasting live. Imagine how it's going to be down in Vegas. My apologies. Gary Shapiro, CEO of the CTA, who's going to be joining us. So just wanted to make that correction. So yeah, we're just kind of going over just how big of a thing this is, and it's always very exciting, especially when you're in this kind of industry that we're in, reporting on this, talking to all the people, and finding out what kind of tech is maybe going to be shaping our lives.
Well, I mean, we talk about how intense it is for us, but you should check out what happens. I mean, down to the last minute, right before the show floor opens, they're still putting things together. They are duct taping things, hammering stuff. It's amazing. We sometimes go behind the scenes on, say, Monday. Things open Tuesday. On Monday, stuff is not built. Like, they're still building stuff. So it's down to the wire, down to the last minute. There are so many incredible moving parts to put this together. It's amazing that it even happens. I'm in awe of it every time that we go. It never wears off. I'm still always surprised. But when it all is said and done, we see some of the best tech that you're going to see all year right there, all in one place. We get to dive deep with it, learn what the rest of our year is going to be like. We call it our Super Bowl. CES is like our Super Bowl.
Right.
And there's really nothing quite like it.
Well, and that is what the excitement is all about. So it's coming up upon us, but let's do this. Let's get an overview. Let's help get you a little bit more prepared for what to expect at CES this year. And to do that, we are going live right now to New York with our editor-in-chief. It is Jeremy Kaplan. Hello, Jeremy.
Good to see you guys. Great to be here. Let's talk about CES. Like Caleb said, the Super Bowl of technology stuff. And personally, we both love and hate to be there because it is so awesome and yet so overwhelming. You see all of these amazing products, the things that shape your year to come. And in fact, sometimes because this is very much a trade show where companies that make products get to meet with companies that then sell products, oftentimes it's companies that make products hoping that they can get distribution for something that maybe doesn't even make it out into the world. So it's like an incredibly cool window if you like gadget stuff like I do. It's a really cool window into that. But then, like as Caleb was saying, this is the largest convention center in the country. and it's not big enough for CES. The show sprawls out onto every single hotel in the entire city. And in fact, they decided they're expanding the convention center just to deal with the fact that CES is so monumentally large. So it's kind of amazing, but terrifying at the same time.
Right. It's a lot of people. You bump into a lot of people. I mean, it's crowded. But it is a ton of fun, and we do get to learn about a lot of technology. And like you both were saying, the stuff that's going to shape our lives, essentially. So let's go through this here. Now, you've got an article at Digital Trends, and we're going to go through some of your points. I just wanted to bring up some of the big things that I know people always want to know about with CES. A huge category, televisions. Caleb, what are the main things you expect to hear from televisions this year?
Well, 8K is going to be a big buzzword. It's already begun. Samsung put out the first 8K TV earlier this year. We're going to see several from other manufacturers at the show, and there'll be a lot of talk about that. We're making an advancement to HDMI 2.1, which on the face of it is not that sexy, but what that new connection standard means is that you get variable refresh rate, high frame rates, more data going down the pipeline, which is great for gamers, and also better audio coming out of your TV. It used to be that you couldn't get Dolby Atmos to your soundbar or receiver out of your TV with simple connections. That all changes this year. And that kind of paints a picture for what it's going to be like in the future years. More and more technology. We're going to hear a lot about AI baked into televisions. This is designed to enhance what Amazon's A-word or the Google Assistant.
We won't send it off right now.
But I mean, it's designed to enhance what they can do for you so that your TV basically acts like an Amazon Echo speaker or a Google Home speaker. It allows you to control things in your home, see different cameras if you have smart cameras installed in your home. But
hey Caleb, let me jump in here. I just want to cut you off for a second. Before we get off of 8K, I think we need to dig into this just a little bit. I think the consumer I think people at large are going 8K. Do I really need something like this? So what I'm waiting to see from CES is sort of an explanation, a positioning statement, if you will, from some of these manufacturers. Like, why do I need this? What's it going to look like? Is there really a benefit? Unless you've already gotten sort of a window into what that content looks like, what TVs that have this incredibly high resolution look like.
I have, and it's fun. Thank you for bringing that up because I tend to skip over it because we've talked about it so much over the last couple of days. But that is the hot button question. Why do I need 8K? Isn't this stupid? And what I tell people,
I just bought a 4K television. Do I have
exactly,
to get
exactly. And what I say to people is, listen, we are at the same place that we were 7 years ago with 4K. Exactly the same place. That's when 4K TVs came out. There was no content then. People thought that the resolution was unnecessary. And look where we are now. 4K is the new standard, and there's tons of stuff you can watch on Amazon and Netflix and Hulu and other providers, and you've got 4K Blu-rays and stuff. 8K is a little bit different, though, because it is a monumental step up. We're talking about over 33 million pixels for a TV.
That's a lot of pixels.
It's a ton. And what I'm trying to explain to people is that really is a benefit for TVs that are about, I'm going to say 80 inches or larger. We will see a 75-inch 8K TV coming from LG for one, but the benefit is in those super big displays. And what we've seen is that 55 inches is the new 42 inches, 65 inches is the new 55. The TVs have been getting bigger, but our living rooms haven't, and we're certainly not sitting any further away from them. So as we move to these much larger displays, you need that higher resolution. It does have a payoff. It does look really great. I've watched YouTube content in 8K on an 8K television, which is a pretty practical application. Most of this stuff is going to be streamed. I think we're moving away from discs.
Right.
And it looks fantastic. It's absolutely magical. And now we can start maybe not looking into projectors if we want that big cinematic experience in our home. We can go with a big, much brighter display. You don't have to worry about mounting a projector and wiring things all over the place. You just put a gigantic screen up on your wall and you have that at-home movie experience better than the movies in a lot of cases because you're getting amazing 8K resolution.
Yeah, exactly. To me, more than anything else, televisions are the epitome of the cool stuff that we see at CES. Yeah, there's robots. Yeah, there's washing machines that will fold your laundry after they're done. I just love watching some of those televisions. And for me, one of the things that I'm more than anything else looking forward to is just sitting down in front of an 8K TV for 15 minutes and watching a little football or whatever else they've got on.
Me too, because I tell you, it's one of those things where you really must see it to believe it. And I think now that a lot of people are finally going to get their eyes on it and see it for themselves, you're going to start hearing more people say what journalists like myself have been saying. You know, there's just a small few of us who have gotten to get in close with these TVs. Now a bunch of people are going to see them. I think you're going to hear what we've been saying here echoed over and over again after CES is over. And I look forward to hearing your impressions, Jeremy, after you've seen it yourself.
Well, and it's true, you know, with the first time you see 4K, you realize, oh, that is amazing. That is a very big difference. So yeah, I'm excited to see the 8K as well. But I think that's going to be a big thing as far as people like actually getting to take a look at it before they're going to understand what the big difference is.
Plus, there's HDR and better color, and I'll tell you what, it's almost 3D. You know, it's not like the fake 3D. It looks so real that it has sort of that three-dimensional effect. It's really cool.
Walking through here, go ahead.
It's not just 8K TVs, though. There's a lot of other display technologies that are going to be a big focus for CES. So one, of course, is the rollable OLED screens. We saw those last year. Actual televisions that just roll up into a little coil like a drape that slides right up into your window. And those are amazing. And I think we're probably going to see, there you can see some footage of that exactly. It rolls up into a little base station, then just rolls out whenever you need it. I think that's pretty fantastic, frankly. Everyone who's got, especially if you have a larger screen television, a 60, 70-inch TV, it just sits on the wall. And unless you've got some technology to make it blend into the backdrop, or maybe you've got a picture that you just hang over that TV. Right. Unless you're doing something like that, there's just a big blank screen on the wall.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you have like the old 80s mansion where, you know, the walls part and, you know, then the television comes out, if you're in Goodfellas, fine. But this is the next step, I think, for that.
It just looks so cool.
It does look cool.
And it can be different aspect ratios. You know, when it's not a fixed size, you can scale it up and down as you want it and use it in different ways. I'm looking forward to seeing the different ways that LG suggests that you use a TV like that.
Well, and part of, you know, CES, there's the practical side to everything, but since it's such a broad show, sometimes it's just, wow, that's cool. You know, but do I really need it? I don't know, but it sure looks cool. I mean, and one of the things that I wanted to get to too with that, you know, talking about displays is foldable phones. I feel like in the last several months especially, we've been hearing about it for years, that somebody's been working on a foldable phone, so-and-so is going to debut one, so-and-so has one. And we finally did get to take a look at a couple over this last couple of months, at least somebody showcasing them. What do we know about foldable phones? Are we going to get to see these at CES? Are these going to be coming out to the market? Jeremy, what can you fill us in on with that?
Well, that's the big question. You know, we've been following the rumors for a couple of months. There's been this will they, won't they thing. Are manufacturers actually going to show these things? And the challenge is, of course, CES, as we've been saying, the Super Bowl of technology. But in just a month or two right afterwards is Mobile World Congress, which is the Super Bowl of mobile technology. So if you're making a splash in the mobile industry, maybe you save it for March, or maybe you debut it at CES. I think it's really a marketing thing at this point. The phones absolutely do exist. If I had to make a prediction, and I do, because that's what I do, I would say absolutely, we are definitely going to see at least one, and I think two of these phones. One of them is going to be from this company called Royole, which came out of nowhere. Basically, they're a Chinese company that they've been sort of in stealth mode for about a decade. I met with a president 2 years ago. He did a little tour around the country and came over and said, hey, by the way, we've been doing all sorts of astonishing things in this little factory. You've never heard of us. We're just over here innovating like mad. And they've got factories that are doing foldable, rollable OLEDs. They're just like, you know, we can do it. Here it is. And so this phone that they've got is essentially a technology demonstration, but it looks great. I mean, it does exactly what you'd expect.
They're actually, Royole, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That company in particular is actually going to be stopping by our Digital Trends live broadcast booth at CES. I can't remember which day, but it's running Tuesday. Okay, it's being told to be Tuesday. So they'll be live on Tuesday. They'll be at our booth. Hopefully they bring it with them, because I would love to see it in hand too. But it sounds like maybe like as far as the consumer side, we're not going to see a whole slew of these, maybe more towards Mobile World Congress, which is when a lot of the phone stuff comes out.
I think we are going to hear some news from one of the major companies. And it's interesting when a company like Royole can do this. I mean, the fact is, yes, here's a proof that this type of a technology works in a phone. But it's a lot more interesting when a company that sells, I don't know, 10, 30, 40 million phones a year does something like this.
Right.
So will a company like Samsung come out with a demo? Will Motorola come out? Will LG do something? That's really the big question here.
Well, let's continue on talking about that. You know, as far as mobile technology and also some of these big companies, another huge buzzword for this upcoming CES has been 5G. 5G, especially over this last year, I feel like more and more people are starting to understand what 5G is, and there's also been a lot of hype from a lot of companies about how they're going to be coming out with 5G phones, and everybody's saying, oh, we're launching a 5G network. What is the actual likelihood, though, that we're going to be able to utilize 5G products? Like, I guess maybe for CES in particular, what will we see from 5G at CES?
Yeah, the big buzzword, more than anything else that you hear about from CES, is going to be 5G. It's just, there's going to be an explosion of noise surrounding 5G. And we've seen this for 2 or 3 years at this point. You go to CES and there's just noise about 5G, which has been, for people like myself, incredibly frustrating. Like, we know that it is an interesting technology. We know it has all sorts of benefits, and yet there's not actually anything to see. And that was the case last year. There was just a lot of hype and no actual products. And then this year, November, December, finally, we've seen companies like AT&T and Verizon rolling out small test markets and actual products that you can actually start using 5G. So I think that what we're going to see this year, for the first time ever, not just hype, but actual timelines, actual announcements about when you're going to be able to use 5G, which is, I think, a big step forward. So still going to be a lot of hype, but I think actual hype surrounding something meaningful for us.
Maybe some kind of destination on the horizon where, okay, I can actually use a 5G phone.
I really want to hear about the rollout of the infrastructure for 5G. Again, not a real sexy word, but I mean, the big problem is we have embargoes against companies like Huawei, which is one of the biggest suppliers of 5G hardware infrastructure out there. The fact is, the U.S. is way behind Europe and China in building out a 5G network. So will we learn a little bit more about the roadmap to deploying the actual network part of this? Because it seems like the cell phone manufacturers, Qualcomm has that new Snapdragon chip that supports 5G. It can go in a phone. We could use it, but where are we going to use it? I'm hoping, like Jeremy said, that maybe it's going to be a little less of the vaporware and a little bit more like substance to that.
Yeah, exactly. The company to watch here is going to be Qualcomm, which makes many of the chips that are going to be powering the cell phones that we're all using. And watch companies like Qualcomm to hear what they have to say about the actual timelines. I think that the products that they're making, the chips themselves, are ready. And now we're waiting to see, when does AT&T, when does Sprint, when do these companies start releasing the cell phones that we can actually use on these things? Well, the challenge here is sort of a chicken and egg thing, of course. So if you're a company, if you're a handset maker like T-Mobile, do you put out a phone today that supports 5G networks that nobody can actually use? Like, you buy that phone at the store, you spend an extra premium to get it, it doesn't actually do anything for you. That's a real challenging proposition for a lot of consumers. And if you're a business, it just doesn't make sense. So it's very hard to figure out, somebody has to take some action and say, we're going to put this out, we're going to deploy this across the country because it's so important. The other thing.
I was going to say 5G is not that different than 8K. If you ask Samsung or LG why they're putting out an 8K TV right now, they're saying they're trying to push the industry. So when we start seeing Qualcomm come out with 5G chips and we see cell phone manufacturers putting them in the cell phones, they're trying to push the technology forward. They're saying, listen, this stuff is ready. Why don't you guys hurry up and catch up, and then we can all enjoy the benefits.
Yeah, you're totally right. I just want to add one thing. I think we're probably not going to see a lot of cell phones at 5G that support, at CES that support the 5G. But that doesn't mean that 5G isn't pervasive in a lot of other ways. One of the things that's neat about 5G is that it has so many different applications. And so I think, and again, there's been a lot of hype around those in years past. And I think finally we're reaching a point where there's going to be actual ways that you can use this thing. The first immediate practical use of 5G is going to be at your house. They call it fixed wireless. And instead of a cable line or a fiber optic network coming into your house and getting you online through that Wi-Fi box that you've got, you're going to have just a 5G box that connects out. And so everything in your house is connected via that, instead of via Wi-Fi, instead of via cable or DSL or whatever you had been using. And a number of companies are announcing those right away. I've already announced them. I think we're going to hear some announcements at CES of products that support this. So residential 5G, I think, is going to be a lot more immediate and a lot more impactful than waiting around for the cellular network to get upgraded in your neighborhood such that some company can finally release the smartphone that you get on with.
Right, I think that's a really good point. I mean, it is going to be a while till we see that infrastructure come out. Hopefully we get a little more news about it, although it will be, at the same time, it's always cool to see what the products are and what they can be used for. You know, like you were just mentioning, like once we get that box, a lot of times at CES, you'll see these companies like, okay, well this, you may not see this for 4 years, but here's our idea of how this could all work. And I think that's a really, really fun side of it. Even if we don't get it right away, just to think about where we can go with it. Because eventually it will be here. We'll have the 5G side of it. Let's go on and talk about something else that's really been prevalent, you know, over the last couple of years. This isn't just a recent thing, but I'm talking about AI, artificial intelligence, how it's being utilized. And especially at CES, it seems like, you know, a couple of years ago, everybody was just talking about the Amazon A word being incorporated in everything. I won't set everybody's off. I'm trying not to do that. But now, you know, we're seeing this kind of technology or this concept being incorporated in all kinds of products. So what do we know about AI at this? And maybe we should just get a basic definition of what quantifies as AI.
I'm interested to hear, you know, Jeremy's opinion on this. But my problem with AI is that it's being used as a marketing term right now. They talk about deep learning, but really it's just like a little boost, like in TVs, for instance. Sorry to go back to it, but when you say that AI is being used to support smart assistants, you know, or to provide better picture quality by doing some analyzations, that's an interesting use of a very thoughtful computer. But is it really AI? Is it really adapting? Is it learning you? Is it changing the way we interact with these devices so that instead of us having to learn how to use the device learns how we want to use it and adapts? That's what I'm looking for. I want to sift this out. We're going to talk about, is it AI or is it BS? You know, at CES, we're going to sift through this and determine, is this really something that is going to transform our world, or is it a small enhancement on something we've always had?
That's a great way of looking at it. AI or BS. I like that. And well, the challenge is that so much of AI is being colored by the voice assistants, right? Of course, Alexa, sorry, I said the A word, is powered by AI. And of course, the Google Assistant is powered by AI. But I think that what we're going to be seeing at CES is not just a lot of speakers that can listen to you and do stuff, but AI that does a lot more. And as you said, Caleb, it's a great way of thinking about it. AI meaning devices that can adapt to you and do things for you. And let me give you a quick example. So the Apple Watch, when Apple came out with Apple Watch 4, there was a big announcement that it can do fall detection. So if you're walking around your house, you trip over the coffee table, you bang your head in the ground, you get knocked out, like this is a bad situation, the Apple Watch can detect that you have fallen based on studying the rate of fall, the rate of acceleration and GPS positioning and stuff, and can make the decision that, hey, nobody's awake, nobody's alert, maybe measure your stats on your wrist and say, nothing's happening here, let's call the hospital for you. That's an incredibly smart use of technology. Now, is that AI? AI, to me, would be, what if the smartwatch can actually predict that I'm in a scenario where I'm going to fall? Maybe it says my heart rate is dropped, my pulse is down, it looks like he's getting faint. What can I do to prevent that? I think that AI is going to be very adaptive and proactive in the future. And so what I'm looking for from a lot of announcements at CES is, what does that mean? We talk about smarts and smart appliances, and the ongoing gag is, do I really want to preheat my oven when I'm at the office? No, I'm just going to burn my damn house down. Nobody wants that. But how can smarts be built into appliances such that they do things and react for us and help us out? And I think that's one of the things. LG has a big keynote where the CTO is going to be talking about things like that, and that's what I really look forward to seeing. What does it mean for us on a real practical level when there's AI built into something?
Right. I want that predictive analysis,
Yeah.
that predictive aspect that Jeremy's talking about here, where it senses that you are engaged in an activity. Maybe you placed an online grocery order. It notices that you've left the office. It automatically notifies them to get things packed up and meet you at your car, so that when you pull up, it's already there. It makes the payment for you. It basically, your digital butler is
Right.
what I'm talking about. I want something that predicts my behaviors and makes simple everyday tasks easier for me, or maybe I don't even have to touch it anymore. That's what
Right.
that's the kind of stuff I'm hoping for, where it learns your behavior and figures out what it can do for you giving you ideas that maybe you didn't even have yourself.
Right, or I just wanted to know, if like the oven example, Greg, it's Tuesday at 6. I know you're going to get a frozen pizza.
That's right.
We're going to have it preheated for you.
You bought it. You bought a DiGiorno's 2 days ago. I know where you're going with this.
The fridge read it. It knows it's in there.
And by the way, while you're at it, I know you're going to be binging this show on Netflix. Let me go ahead and get that ready for you so that when you sit down, you're ready to rock with it. You know what I mean?
I want to live in that world. That is the world that I want to inhabit.
That's what we need from CES. But AI, it'll be a huge thing there this year, and I love again, just to go back to the AI or BS, we'll be talking about that all through the Consumer Electronics Show and just deciphering everything that's going on with that as all these companies come out with announcements. Couple more things that we want to get to here too, because CES is so broad. We could spend, 3 straight days broadcasting about it and probably still not be able to get everything, which is why we have a website. So in this amount of time, let's get to something else that's a huge, huge part of CES now, especially over the last 5-6 years, I feel like, maybe longer than that, but the auto industry. The auto industry is a gigantic component of the Consumer Electronics Show because of this, continuing, merging of electronics and the auto industry and cars and how everything's kind of come together. What do we expect from the auto industry this year at CES?
Well, the one thing that I'm expecting more than anything is a lot of demonstrations of the self-driving cars. Just like 5G, self-driving cars are this technology we've been talking about for ages and ages, and we're finally actually getting there. So I remember last year I took a ride in a self-driving taxi cab, which was the single most boring thing I've ever done in my life. At the same time that it was astounding. Like it was a taxi ride. It took me around the corner, took me to a destination, dropped me off. Exactly nothing happened. But on the other hand, oh my God, it was driven by a robot and we didn't crash or anything. Fantastic. So what you're going to see is this really interesting duality. So you see that picture right there. We've got the e-Palette, a demo car from Toyota. At the same time that we're seeing these really dull and yet amazing demonstrations of self-driving cars, we're going to see these really astonishing looks at what life will be like if you own a self-driving car. Because if you think about it, you don't need your driver's license anymore. You don't need to be behind the wheel. You don't even need to pay attention. You're just a passive passenger. They call it the 25th hour, right? The 25th hour of your day is that 1 hour that you usually spend commuting that's suddenly been reclaimed for you. So what is the experience like inside of a car when all of a sudden you don't need to drive, you're just sitting there? And so that's the thing that I look forward to seeing, like the demonstrations. It's like benches and LCD screens and like built-in coffee makers. You pull a coffee over here and the newspaper comes up and you're just sitting back relaxing while the car's doing the driving for you. That's the cool part of the car experience.
There's so many. If I'm a marketing person, I'm really excited about how I could reach an audience inside that car the same way I've been trying to reach them via television. You are a captive audience at that point. You got nothing else to do. What are you going to do while you're in that car? Jeremy nailed it. I'm hoping for more than just another ride in an autonomous car there. I feel like that's kind of played out. CES, in my opinion, has become the most important car show of the year because the cars themselves aren't changing that much. It's still four wheels and it gets you from point A to point B. It's what happens in that time between point A and point B that's super important. And my hope is that, they're going to start focusing on, just like Jeremy said, the tech inside the car, how that's going to change, how you interact with it, how much more comfortable it could become. It's going to be super interesting to see where they go with all of that. And we see some really big deal automakers coming through. They take this show very seriously now, and it's it's almost a show within a show. It's its own thing.
Well, it's going to be exciting to see what they come up with. And I always love those displays of where it's going to go. Even that image that we just showed, oh yeah, you're going to sit in here and it's going to be a movie theater and a massage chair and you're going to hang out. Whatever it is, just kind of thinking about where that concept's going to end up. Well, I know we've got a couple of minutes left because I believe, it sounds like Gary Shapiro, the president and CEO of the Consumer Technology Association, is joining us here in just a couple of minutes. So we're going to have him on to talk about the overall CES picture. But before we get done with that, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up, and it has to do with Jeremy's article about this. And in particular, I thought it was interesting. You brought up tech for women is something that we can look forward to that's going to be a big thing at CES this year. Can you maybe walk us through that and why that's going to be a big thing?
Well, yeah. So the thing that got me thinking about this at first was 2 years ago at CES, there was a device called the Willow breast pump, which made a whole bunch of headlines. It took a thing that that a functional thing that a nursing mother has to use, and turn it into a smart gadget. All of a sudden, it's got brains built into something that was just a simple appliance before. And I found it remarkable because the fact that it had been ignored for so long, I think spoke directly to the technology industry and its issues with gender. And the technology industry is very heavily male. So it's like products by men being built for men. And all of a sudden, here's a product that says, well, wait a minute, half the populace is female, and there are issues that they have and problems that they can solve with technology. So what does that look like? So I think the Willow breast pump was really just the tip of the iceberg. There's this whole category of things called mommy tech that has been exploding, and it's been at CES, but it's sort of been like down a corridor, around a hall, tucked behind some boxes. There's been a demonstration of this and that. So there's going to be a pavilion for the first time that's really front and center, which really underscores a lot of this technology. And I think that the CTA has been courting some of the companies who are making appearances this year for the first time, like L'Oreal is going to be there, Olay is going to be there, and a lot of products that really just are designed and built specifically for women, which is, I think, not going to solve any of the tech industry's problems. There's still a lot of problems about how many men work at Google versus how many women work at Google. But this is a nice step down the road towards acknowledging that there are gender differences and technology can help out a lot of different people.
At least it's moving in the right direction when it comes to that side of it.
I mean, look at smartwatches. For years, the smartwatches were big, they were bulky, they didn't fit for a lot of women's wrists. It just completely overlooked them. With smartwatches, we started to see sort of the tide change there, very, very slowly, unfortunately. But now we see a lot of smartwatches and other biometric type devices that take into consideration unique issues that women have. And then also, we're seeing a lot happening in the beauty sphere as well. I'm excited to see something like that. I don't want to get too far off the point, but you know what another trend is pet tech. There's a lot of stuff for your cat and dog at CES, and not all of it is garbage. Like, if you can solve a nasty problem like dealing with your cat or dog poop and actually solve that issue, that's huge. There's a lot of pet owners out there. So, I mean,
all for it.
Seeing tech creep into these new sectors is really exciting, and seeing women get a slice of that technology aimed specifically for them is fantastic and way overdue.
Well, there's so much excitement to cover when it comes down to the Consumer Electronics Show, and that's why Digital Trends is here to bring you information about all of these different things. We've got, I don't even know how many people are going to be at CES this year covering all aspects of everything that's going on there to bring you up to date on it. And we'll also be broadcasting live. And Jeremy, I want to say thank you so much for taking some time. I know you're probably heading out of town here shortly to get down there to Las Vegas. Jeremy Kaplan, read his article at Digital Trends. Jeremy, any final words for everybody?
I just want you to say a little prayer for me at CES, both the greatest time ever and the worst time ever. I'll roll up into one gigantic ball.
That sums it up perfectly. That's it. All right, well, Jeremy, thank you so much. So here's what's going to go on. We're broadcasting live right now, Digital Trends Live, as we do every day, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, and then next week for CES, all day long. So we'll be here all day long, bringing you all kinds of different interviews, but we've got a very great interview coming up for you here in just a couple of minutes. Caleb and I are going to be joined by Gary Shapiro, the president and CEO of the CTA, the Consumer Technology Association. They're the ones that put on CES every year, this gigantic, huge undertaking. They do this for us to be able to see all of these amazing advancements that are going on in the world of consumer electronics. So let's take a quick break. We'll be right back here in just a minute with Gary Shapiro right here on Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in here as we get ready for the big show itself, the Consumer Electronics Show. We are so excited to be joined now by the president and CEO of the CTA. It is Gary Shapiro. Hello, Gary.
Hello, guys. I'm so honored to be with you. It's such an important time in technology history.
I'm sure you have been going probably 24 hours a day for the last several months preparing for this, but we thank you for taking some time to talk to us, before this whole thing really gets underway. Gary, I was thinking maybe just to start off, just for everybody who's watching in, because, everybody knows the CTA for being associated with CES, for putting on the Consumer Electronics Show, but it's such a much bigger organization than that. Maybe would you be able to walk us through what exactly the CTA does outside of CES and just as a general organization?
So we're the Consumer Technology Association, and we are one of the largest trade associations in the United States. We have over 2,200 corporate members. You must be an American company to be a member, but that includes subsidiaries of overseas companies. And we also count Canada as being part of the United States. So if you're a Canadian company, you're fine. And we're a nonprofit, which means that we have a special treatment, and because we're only allowed to do certain things, and that is promote the industry. We work with government. We do lobby. We have lobbyists, believe it or not, in most of the states, and obviously we're based in the Washington, D.C. area. We're very focused on making sure that innovation can occur. That's our mandate, that the government doesn't cut off new promising areas. It requires us to go up against some established industries, like we fought the motion picture industry over recording devices and the music industry, and we're fighting the hotel industry over the legality of Airbnb, and taxi cab drivers over Lyft and Uber. So we're out there fighting for the new business models, fighting for the new type of thing which will advance the human condition. But we actually don't represent consumers, even though we're always, it seems like 99% of the time, on the consumer side, but we're up against the status quo almost always. So we also count things. We do a lot of market research. We find out what consumers like. We count the widgets that are being sold. We project on sales. We talk to Wall Street. We also create standards from the back of the computer, the RS-232 jack, to the standards that help launch high-definition television or create things like home theater words that everyone will agree on. So when a consumer buys a product, they'll know what type of technical standards it meets. So we do a lot of different things. We also have a foundation which focuses on people with disabilities and older people, and make sure that they can benefit also from these new technologies that are out there, because they are empowering people in all sorts of huge ways that, frankly, none of us could have anticipated. But that's important. For example, just to give you an example, 10 years ago, there was a proposal that every product be usable by everybody with a disability. And we fought that tooth and nail, because we said you're going to choke off innovation. Plus, it's physically impossible to have every product respond to someone who can't lift something, who can't see something. I mean, just give us some flexibility in the marketplace. We'll create things. And sure enough, that's what's happened. Because of that, there's smartphones and other tablets are doing things for visually impaired and other people and hearing impaired in ways we didn't even anticipate, because the free market allowed innovation to occur. We also did some cool things, like we are in the process, and we got a law passed through Congress and signed by President Obama that allows hearing devices to be sold the way eyeglasses are sold. So instead of paying several $1,000s and having to go to a hearing specialist, you could basically go into a drugstore, figure out what works for you, and get something so you could hear. Because believe it or not, millions of Americans can't afford the hearing devices that are out there, are ashamed to get it, while the marketplace is producing incredible technologies that can be customizable for anyone with a hearing problem.
Yeah, I mean, as you said before, you're not necessarily a consumer advocate, but a lot of the policies that you develop do benefit consumers. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the CTA was involved in helping standardize closed captioning for streaming services and making sure that, that was available to everyone. I mean, that's the thing with these standards is technology field is like the wild, wild west. Somebody needs to come in and kind of patrol this and make sure that, everybody gets to benefit.
Absolutely. So we're not big on mandates. We're big on how you build things. We're big on getting to the result. So if the result is that hearing impaired people can read captioning, that's something we're fine to do, and we teach government how to do it. In the case of captioning and with the V-chip, we came up with the ideas, we taught government too well, and then they mandated it. But that's life. We didn't fight the streaming requirement, but you're dealing with different industries in Washington. You're dealing with quick-moving things. You're dealing with a government that doesn't really understand innovation and technology, but they mean well. And so one of the things we try to do, for example, is to get as many government officials to CES as possible, because once they go there, they get it. They understand that innovation comes, from thousands of different companies and startups and entrepreneurs, and the U.S. is really a world leader, and they are excited about it. Sadly, for this CES, though, it doesn't look like we'll have many federal government officials because our government is essentially closing down. It has budget impasse, but that's just the crisis of the day we're dealing with.
Right. I mean, I can only imagine how many different of those kinds of things that you have dealt with throughout your time at the CTA, just different kinds of crises like that along those lines. But I do like the idea of getting as many, government officials down there as much as possible, so you don't have somebody, asking the CEO of Google about why his iPhone doesn't work, things along those lines. With that, I'm just going to throw this out here, just because we have you here talking about this. What are your thoughts on net neutrality and where we're at right now with it? I know it's a big, broad question, but what's your stance? What's the CTA stance? Where are we at on that?
So some 20 years ago, I was pushing the FCC to adopt voluntary principles on net neutrality, which they did. I spent a lot of time there working on them, which basically said, here's net neutrality, and it's voluntary. And under Chairman Powell then, Michael Powell, General Powell's son, who's chairman of the FCC, they adopted these voluntary standards, and they worked phenomenally well for 15 or 20 years. And all of a sudden, for reasons I still don't understand, President Obama, candidate Obama, made it an issue. Silicon Valley fell in love with the idea the government would regulate the internet. Much to their chagrin now, the government's really interested in regulating the internet. And we never got out there and supported a mandate. We said this is working, and what we really should be focusing on is competition among broadband providers. If you have real competition, you'll have lower prices, and if you have the ability to get out of a contract, if the provider changes their net neutrality approach, you should be able to. So we stayed out of the net neutrality debate for the most part because we thought, frankly, it was a big waste of time, a stalemate. And I'm very glad of that decision for the last 6 years because we focused on things we consider much more important and valuable. The truth is that net neutrality has not been an issue yet in the real world. And woe be the broadband provider who tries to violate that. They'll be excoriated. And for us, what's really important is that there be investment in competitive broadband services. We want broadband in every possible flavor. We're always fighting for more spectrum for broadband. We're excited about 5G. We worked on Wi-Fi, on all sorts of ultra Wi-Fi. We even worked on power line as a way to get broadband, satellite delivery of broadband. Broadband should be more competitive than it is in the United States. To me, that is the solution. Now, I'll be honest with you. Some of my members disagree with me on this. Some of them are on different sides in this. We have Verizon and AT&T, and I think even Comcast as members, and we have almost every Silicon Valley company as a member. So let them disagree. Let them fight it out. This is the position that I take, which no one seems to disagree with, is that competition in broadband is a good thing. And investment in broadband is really essential, especially as we go to 5G. And that's what you'll see at the CES. You'll see a lot of 5G. You'll see a lot of different ways of delivering broadband. I don't want to go back to those heyday years at the end of the 1990s when the stock market imploded because everyone had a business plan assuming there will be broadband, and there wasn't. I want more, faster, quicker, cheaper, pervasive broadband, and that's my goal. Not what you expected to hear, is it?
No, I mean I'm expecting to hear whatever you think. That's why we're asking you. I do think that's 5G. It's something that we were actually talking about. Everybody's talking about 5G. It's one of the biggest, I would think, stories of CES as far as at least what's getting covered. Everybody wants to know, when are we going to get 5G? Well, let me ask you, from the CTA standpoint, or from what you guys are doing just from the lobbying standpoint, how far away are we from having 5G in our homes? What's your opinion on that?
Well, every 10 years there's been a new G, starting with 1980. We didn't call it 1G then, but 1990 was 2G, 2000 was 3G, 2010 was 4G, so 2020 will be 5G. We're actually issuing some sales projections for 5G in next week. We'll be talking about that in terms of how it'll play out in the next few years. We're very excited to have the leaders from AT&T and Verizon speaking about it at CES. So there'll be a whole bunch of exhibitors showing 5G infrastructure, 5G products. It'll be one of the main subjects at CES 2019 and 2020. We expect even more because 5G is the future. It has lower latency speeds, quicker, fatter broadband pipes. It's just everything we want. And it'll solve a lot of the last mile problems, especially in the suburban and urban areas. Rural is a different because, the 5G receivers have to be very small, but there has to be a lot of them. So you're not going to get full coverage of the United States because of 5G. But I think, Microsoft has a very interesting proposal for using open TV spectrum space between the channels in the rural environment. And that's something we'll be urging our government to focus on and look at to solve the real chasm between the have-nots in the rural areas and the haves in the urban and suburban areas.
I want to dig into that just a little bit more. I know we have a lot to talk about, but
I've just said everything I know. I don't know how you do that.
I guess
I'm a mile wide and an inch deep, guys.
That's awesome. Well, listen, I just wonder how much you see the government possibly standing in the way of developing the 5G infrastructure when we have an embargo against a company like Huawei, which develops tons of the hardware that would normally be perhaps purchased by the U.S. and used for 5G infrastructure. Are we a little bit behind China and maybe even Europe in getting this infrastructure built so that we can get 5G a little bit faster?
Well, there's no question we are behind China in infrastructure deployment as of today. They have, 5 or 10 times the amount of cells that we have. However, having said that about Huawei, even though they're U.S. affiliate, they're a member of ours, I have spoken with enough people with security clearance to believe that they believe that there's a security issue there, and it's a position of the government, the United States government, which I respect. I mean, we're taxpayers, and we pay these people to worry about us, that they're concerned about Huawei having a hole. So I believe that they're concerned. Having said that, I'm more concerned, frankly, that we are now, the Trump administration is proposing all sorts of restrictions on 5G exports as an export control in a blanket sort of way, which could be very destructive to the concept of 5G deployment in the U.S. We will need to import some products. It's just a fact. That's the global marketplace. And if they go forward with import and export restrictions on 5G, we will definitely be hindered as a nation in 5G deployment. We will be behind. We've done a good job with 4G. It's allowed us to catch up with the rest of the world. We were pretty good there with 1G and 2G, where we're leaders. 5G is a battle. AI is a battle, and we can't mess it up. We have to balance real national security concerns against commercial concerns. If you think about AI and 5G, most of the things have nothing to do with anything having to do with national security. If you're talking about how you could get deployment in a factory or getting broadband to the urban environment, that's a good thing. It has nothing to do with legitimate national security concerns. So I think when our administration and our government talk about this, we have to make sure they're talking about real national security, not just broad blanket, seat of the pants, no research, just a gut feeling. And we have to hold our government accountable, which is obviously a challenge to do in the present political environment.
That's super important because I feel like as consumers, we want this cool new stuff. We want it now. We want it fast. And sometimes we get that, but at the expense of security. This is why people are hacking Chromecasts and hacking smart TVs. Sometimes things get deployed a little bit faster than maybe they should because we're hungry for this stuff. And I'm for one, am glad that we're looking out for national security when we're deploying a huge new wireless standard.
Yeah, and I agree that we have to look at what's important and not put everything with one brush.
Right.
And say, look, people having better, safer, quicker, more effective medical treatment designed for their illness based on past results is really important. Does that clash with privacy concerns? It might, but most of the world would gladly give up privacy to be treated for a disease in a way that will get them healthy and alive. And under the standard in medical care today of HIPAA, we've lost a little bit of that. We've stymied our medical establishment from sharing information. We're not basing things on real life results, and we're hindering ourselves. So there's always trade-offs. Look, you're willing to give up your privacy if you're in a multi-car accident and the first responder comes, you would gladly have your car seat tell them whether you're alive or dead and what your vitals are so they could treat you appropriately. So privacy goes out in the way of other things like health and safety. It's like, I think Israel's pretty much figured this out. in real security situations and health and safety. They figured out, we figured it out. We give up our security and privacy in airports. We're willing to give up a little bit in our kids' schools to keep them safe. We're always balancing. And my approach always with government is let's balance, let's be reasonable, let's not be stupid, and let's recognize that there's a hierarchy of, health and life and safety down to stuff that just may feel good because we want to do it. Let's just not have one rule apply to everything.
You're right. It's a very, very complex issue, and there's a lot to deal with. And I think we just covered a whole bunch of the different aspects of that. And Gary, don't ever let anyone accuse you of being only 1 inch deep. That was way deeper than 1 inch. We just went into a bunch.
2 inches.
So at least 2 inches, I'm giving you. Well, Gary, I want to say thank you for spending some time with us. I know you're a very, very busy guy. Just really quick, we're really excited about CES. Maybe you just touch on who are our keynote speakers at this year's event.
So we have some phenomenal keynote speakers. We have the head of Verizon, Hans Vestberg, speaking. I was going back and forth with him this morning. I hope they'll be talking about 5G. We have Dr. Lisa So of the CEO of AMD. The chip companies are the ones you should always be looking to for the future. Intel, Qualcomm, TI, NVIDIA, they'll all be there in with huge exhibits in various forms talking about what's really out there in the future. I'm not sure if we have the Secretary of Transportation as of this second. She'll be talking about the future of transportation, but she is a federal government official. Her husband happens to be Senate Majority Leader. They know more than I do whether or not they'll be there. And we also have the head of LG speaking, and we expect discussion about artificial intelligence, as well as Ginny Rometty from IBM. We'll probably be talking about artificial intelligence, quantum computing, all sorts of different things. And we have a whole bunch of other keynoters and featured speakers that are on our website.
Gary.
And of course, I should have to mention, because it's me and I have this second that you could edit me out, there's a great book being launched at CES.
I was just going to get to it.
Good. Okay. Digital. It's called Ninja Future, and it's the third book we have released at CES through me, and it's the second Ninja book, and it's about all these technologies, robotics, artificial intelligence, VR, AR, blockchain, everything at CES, and it also talks about how you can change and deal with it as a business, as a government, as an individual, and how you can deal with it. There's also an audio version that I read in this very room that I'm really proud of. I'm getting good feedback on. So any way you want it, it's out there. As we speak, it's number 2 on Barnes & Noble, right behind Michelle Obama. What can I say?
Wow, congratulations.
Hey, that's some pretty good company
to
have right there. Well, congratulations, Gary, on that and CES, the CTA, everything that you're doing. How you ever sleep, I do not know. But thank you for spending some time with us here for Digital Trends. We look forward to being down there. We'll be there in a couple of days and seeing everything that CES has. Thank you so much, Gary.
Thank you, and safe travels to Vegas. Glad you're coming.
Sounds great. Well, there we go. That's pretty amazing right there. Gary Shapiro, President and CEO of the CTA, hopping on the air with us here for Digital Trends Live, talking about the big show, which is coming up.
Interesting, some of the stuff that he's most passionate about and obviously clearly excited to see some of the same stuff that we've been talking about, 5G, AI, making huge impacts across all different kinds of technology sectors. I think this is going to be a pretty remarkable show. Obviously, he's excited, possibly about some stuff that we don't even know about. And also interesting that the government shutdown is having a real effect. Something that we weren't able to cover live there was that there was a conversation between Ajit Pai and Gary Shapiro that was scheduled. Probably not going to happen. Not Ajit Pai's choice. I mean,
not this time. Because the FCC is. I mean, who knows? Maybe in a couple of days that'll change. But that's where we're at right now. The government is shut down.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what a lot could happen between now and then. I mean, it's only a few days, but a lot could happen. So who knows? Well,
regardless, the show will go on because the Consumer Electronics Show does start next week, and we will be there broadcasting live starting on Tuesday. We will be live every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 to 9 hour, 10 hour. I don't even know how long we're going to be there. Broadcasting live, bringing you interviews and all kinds of information as we go through the show. And just like we're live here, we can take your comments and questions with that. And let alone that section of it, Digital Trends We'll be live 24 hours a day on the website with information, updates. We'll bring you all the latest stuff, all those things we talked about. As that news breaks, go to us. That's where you'll get the latest breaking information. So follow us, subscribe on all your different platforms to make sure you get the latest updates. It's going to be a really, really exciting week, and we're so happy to be doing it with you. Caleb, thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm looking forward to being down there with you, Greg.
I am too. It is going to be so much fun. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for watching, and we will be live with you next week in Las Vegas for the Consumer Electronics Show, broadcasting digital trends live.